Hey, everybody. Got a question for you. Do you know what the first stage is of overcoming compulsive behavior? What technically the first step is? So we're going to talk about it today. It's actually called breaking through denial. So let's jump into it. Welcome to Beyond the Facade podcast. I'm your host, Luke Gordon, and I'm thrilled to have you join me in this space today. What we're going to be doing is diving deep into the trials and triumphs and truths of seeking authenticity. Becoming your true self isn't about a single action or a moment. It's a relentless pursuit, a commitment to self that reveals the rich connection and meaning that our life has to offer. So whether this is your first time tuning in or you're a regular listener, know this: what you're building here goes beyond a conversation. You're here to challenge, to change, and to celebrate the incredible journey of becoming your authentic self. Because when you dare to show up fully, the rewards are immeasurable. So welcome to Beyond the Facade. Let's get started. Alana is hanging out with me today. I'm very happy about that. I'm happy about that because we get a chance to share a little bit more about what we maybe talk about, and you guys get a chance to share in that experience of maybe some behind the scenes conversations we have that people usually say can be rewarding. I'm going to tell you about an experience I had being around some men in the recovery journey. We got talking about it, like, where does this journey start? Like, how do I know if I'm on the path? And they're like, okay, what's the first step? And we got talking about Patrick Carnes' model, and first part is breaking through denial. And we actually have a few things that you can measure, because it's nice to be able to measure something and be able to say, I think I'm making some progress here, really actionable things. And you can just sit with them and measure them and go, okay, what does this look like for me? When I was with these men, one of the things that happened is he came in to this setting, like really kind of like empowered and excited. And it was great. And when he said, by the time we got done with the conversation, it felt heavy for him, like super heavy. So when we talk about denial, like really what we're talking about is levels of awareness. So when we become more aware of something, it can have a tremendous emotional impact on us. So anyway, we're just going to give some measurable things today.
I really love that. I love that even you started by laying the foundation of the levels of awareness, because denial is one of those really tricky ones that self-denial is real. And a lot of times when we're in denial, we have no idea that we're in denial. And I'll see that with both partners, that there'll be levels of denial. And sometimes it's levels of things I'm not yet ready to see. And then sometimes it's things I'm not willing to see. And so just laying that foundation of levels of awareness is, each time we come to additional level of awareness, it gives us the opportunity to keep growing and get additional levels of awareness, but we can't skip forward and all of a sudden be at the end and just have all the information. And so this truly, truly, truly is a journey. And so if step one is breaking through denial, I just think it's one of those things we can't check a box with. And so I'm a little nervous where we have this checklist. It's good. It's a good checklist. But if someone's sitting down and like, okay, give me the answer so I can check the box, that's not really what today's about.
I don't think you're going to like the answers. Not talking about you, Alana. Well, maybe you can take it if you want, but I don't think these answers are fun to hear. Like, part of me wants to go like, how long are people going to hang on through this recording, this podcast? Who is anybody going to like skip forward and say, I'll go to the next one? I know I would have wanted to, for sure. And by the way, I don't know if this is funny or not, but one of the guys asked me that I was around. It was a group setting. He's like, okay, so what was it like for your story, Luke, with the breaking through denial? How did you know when you were out of denial? I'm like, that's a great question. I'll totally let you know what that's like when I get there. So I don't know, because I can't see what I don't see yet. I don't know that it's there. So the only way I'll be able to see it if I set myself up to being ready to see it. And that's like why it's layered, is because how many times I'm speaking to the betrayed partner, how many times you're like, this is so clear. Why can't you see this? And it's, and it's an emotional experience that seems so plain to that person. But for that person that's in compulsive behavior, they haven't set themselves up to see it. They frame their world to not be able to see it. So
Mhm. And I'll just say that I think there's 3 elements that I just want to highlight.
Oh,
First, you have to want to see past the denial, right? There has to be some kind of desire of, I want to lean into this hard work, which is the second piece. You have to be willing to do the hard work that comes out of denial, because you don't just instantly come out of denial. There will be work and effort on your part to do so, which means element number 3 is you're willing to be in discomfort, because denial is there for a reason. Like, the reason our brain and body has denial is to protect us from things that are hard or uncomfortable, because the brain is hardwired to avoid pain. And so we have to be willing and ready to do the work to lean into it and to face the discomfort of it.
oh, that's so good. That's so good. And one of the things I love that you do, Alana, is you're like always pointing out like everything that it seems like just as bad, pointing out, well, actually there can be a helpful, I don't know, I want to say like good twin to this experience. Can denial ever be useful? No, I won't speak so much to addiction right now, but short-term emotional protection, right? If a person experiences trauma, devastating news, there can be levels of denial that can be really important to have some temporary stability inside of that. So just recognizing, and we'll talk about it today, we can't just throw something completely out because it exists for a reason. Okay, so should we get into the different ones, Alana?
Yeah.
Okay. These are the things that you can mark, you can measure, and you can look at, and you can go, okay, I'm going to look at myself in the mirror and I'm going to go, where am I at with this? Okay.
Yeah.
So
Personal assessment.
it's personal assessment, right?
Mm.
And we're going to hopefully, Alana and I will speak in a way where there can be some opportunity to see it without necessarily pulling all the shame into it. Okay. So the first one is like that you take full responsibility without justifying or minimizing. All right. So do you acknowledge your behaviors without making excuses? I like to call them even more than just excuses, reasons. There's a reason I did that, right? There's a reason I behave that way. And I think often when I'm talking about behavior and I throw in the reason behind it, and it keeps me safer from seeing the impact of that behavior or knowing how it impacts me, it impacts others, it means that there's a level of denial there.
Mm. Yeah, that's an interesting. I hadn't thought of it like that. So if I do something that hurts somebody else, and then I'm trying to show the reasons why I did that, at some level, I am trying to not see that full impact, because the impact is painful for me too.
Painful. Yeah, because it's like I don't know, what is it? It's sugar coating, putting frosting on it. What is that called? Sugar coat it? I don't even know what I'm talking about right now. There's that put lipstick on it where it's, hey, I know I hurt you, but I want to share with you I had good intentions behind it. There was a reason for how I showed up. It keeps me away from like you said, the pain, Alana, of what's going on. I get to keep a distance from it.
And we won't go too deep into this concept, but intent versus impact. If we're focused on the intent and ignoring the impact, then at some level, there is going to be some self-denial that's happening in there.
Mm-hmm. And I'll give you the one that comes up often with us is when you do full disclosures. I'll genderize the man because the ones I'm typically working with, he will write as a full disclosure and he'll put the behavior and then without really even consciously noticing it, he'll say things like, the reason this happened is I was stressed or I was feeling shame. And so there's a reason behind there. And as long as that exists, it's harder for him to actually see the behavior. Okay. So that's one piece of taking responsibility. The other one is that you can own your actions, your past actions, without shifting blame to someone else. So it gets to just stay about you. It doesn't end up being about somebody else.
Yeah, and not just shifting the blame to another person, but it could be to your family of origin, to your upbringing, to your circumstances. And there's a difference between understanding the elements that play into it and excusing behaviors. An explanation or an excuse. So there are explanations that play into a lot of people who have addiction come from a rigid upbringing, or they come from having early exposure to trauma. And so while those are explanations that make sense of choices, they aren't excuses for choices. But when we are using those past actions, using those other things as excuses for behavior, then we absolutely are still going to be in denial.
So I don't know if this is the right rabbit hole on them, but in the work that you do as a therapist, when is it appropriate for somebody to be able to understand the reasons behind the behavior, not the excuse, but the reasons behind the behavior versus when is it just denial? Like, when is it, does that question make sense?
Yeah. And the simple answer is it depends. But I think, like, I use this analogy with clients a lot is I want to imagine that there's this table in front of us. And on that table, we're going to put different things on the table and we're going to look at all the different elements, but we're not going to hide any under the napkin. We're not going to push things off the table. And so being in denial is I just don't want to look at certain things, right? They're there, they're on the table, but I'm hiding them under the napkin. We're pretending they don't exist. But instead, it's like, no, let's lay everything out on the table. And then when we have it laying out on the table, then we sort through and figure out what order do we want to address these different things and what level of importance and what energy do we want to give them. And somebody who has trauma in their childhood and they're acting out is heavily based on the trauma, is a direct result of it that we are recreating the trauma today. I might address that trauma in a lot different way than if I have a client who had something traumatic happen, had some therapy in childhood, and that still is an impact, but we have other elements that are demanding our attention first. And so it's really going to vary, but I think seeing reality and seeing all of the pieces without hiding or blocking our view from the different pieces, I think that's what's really key.
I think that's it. Yeah, I think it makes sense because if it protects me, if it protects the behavior or the pain from the behavior, it's really problematic. But if it exposes the behavior, then it can be helpful. And I think about that being done in isolation. I think about that usually if I'm not acknowledging the behavior, I'm creating excuses or I'm blaming it, is to protect me and protect the behavior. Where one of them, done in the right context, is exposing the behavior. It's leaving the behavior more vulnerable. And the behavior feels like myself, right? In a bad place. But in a good place, in a safe place, it's separate from me. Does that make any sense?
It does. And this self-protection, I just want to voice it goes so deep.
So deep.
And yeah, I just think of like being a partner and seeing the other person in self-protection and how triggering that is to see that self-protection, but also me being a human and knowing that it's so innate and so quick for all of us that our initial reaction to a lot of things is to self-protect.
Mm.
And what do I do after that initial reaction? So I initially want to defend. I initially want to protect myself. I initially want to not look at things. But then do I take it a step further and step out of that self-protection into awareness, into clarity, out of denial?
Mm. By the way, the only way to see justification and minimizing is from a shame-free experience. And that's kind of interesting because I think about the amount of times that somebody that I loved would tell me I was justifying or minimizing. And if I was experiencing shame, I could not see that. I could not
Or
see that
hear it.
or hear it. I hear it or see it. We're going to take a quick break for a moment. I want to let you know of some things that we have coming up at Choose Recovery Services.
At Choose Recovery, we do a lot of intensives, but there is one in particular that I am so excited about. It is the Rebuilding Us Intensive. And this is for couples who have been through betrayal, but have put in a lot of work and are ready to dive into some deeper emotional work. But they feel like there's something missing, that they need that extra support to take their relationship to the next level. So this intensive is going to be in Phoenix, Arizona, March 26th to 29th. So it'll be a gorgeous time of year. depending on where you're at in the world, come get some sunshine. What we'll be doing is we'll be using tools from emotionally focused therapy, doing the Hold Me Tight workshop, intermixed with lots of experiential activities, things like drum making and rappelling and different activities that are going to allow you an opportunity to really see each other, work together, and come and build something brand new. Because that's what we're doing here is we're not trying to go back to the way the relationship was. We're not trying to go back to old patterns. No, we're trying to break those patterns that weren't working and do something different and get that deeper level of intimacy. So if that's something that you would like in your relationship, you can go to chooserecoveryservices.com. Under intensives, you'll see the intensives for the whole year, but this one again is the Rebuilding Us intensive. And you can come hang out with myself and Hallie Roderick, Morgan Ellsworth, and Luke Gordon. It will be a small, intimate group, so you will get lots of one-on-one support, along with being able to connect with others who are on the journey with you. If you would like to join us, we would love to have you register by February 28th. You can use the promo code RebuildUs500 and you'll get that $500 off. Again, it's just through February 28th. And cool thing about this, we also have payment plans available if needed, which you can reach out to info@chooserecoveryservices.com to learn more.
Let's get back to our episode. So here's the third part of the taking full responsibility for justifying. The third part is you're willing to recognize how those actions affected other people. So if I'm in a place where I'm taking responsibility, no excuses, and I'm really looking at the impact of other people, right? So that's the responsibility piece.
And I'll just say, it doesn't even mean that you necessarily understand the impact, but there is a real sincere effort to understand it and being willing to step into your own pain to understand theirs. It's not making it about you and your pain, but it's tapping into your place where you've been in darkness to understand their darkness.
And I think, Alana, even to build, I think the momentum that even carries into is a lack of caring about my own pain. It's I can see that other person's pain and I know it exists inside of me, but frankly, I'm not interested in giving it any attention, not because it doesn't matter, because it's not important, but I've held space for me. Now I want to be with them. So that's the responsibility part. Okay, so here's the second part. If first part is taking full responsibility, that's one way to measure it. I have a hard time with this one. You are open to feedback from others. If I'm in denial and I don't really want to see anything, I'm not open to feedback, right? That's why I say I have a hard time with this one. When I'm in a shame-filled spot, I'm not open to feedback. I'm not open to what other people say about me, the impact on them. So if you're willing to hear and consider other people's perspective, whether it's a therapist or a coach, accountability partner, specifically your romantic partner, and you're not dismissing it, you're not against it. And if you're actively seeking out that input, like, tell me more about what you mean, I want to understand that. It's pretty tough to be in hardcore denial and be experiencing, like, I want to know what other people's perspective is. And I want to know what
Well,
that is.
and this is a spectrum because I can see the extreme on both sides.
Okay.
Can you see the extreme of being totally closed to feedback and how problematic that is? And then having no sense of self and looking to everyone else to tell you who you are and what the answer is. So there really is
Mhm.
this healthy middle of I hear feedback and I can sit with it and I can sort through it and I can learn of what is my reality and what's my truth.
Mm, I love that.
Because I see some individuals where they've hurt their partner and then they go to this place and I'm going to be sensitive with this because there's different stages. Like in the beginning, there really is there needs to be such tender care of the partner. And so it really is, what does the partner need to feel safe? What do we need to do? But we also get such a differentiation in the power dynamic. It can't stay that way forever. And the Hope Ray calls it the floating saint,
Mm,
where they just become this floating saint. They do and say whatever you want. it still is a form of inauthenticity, and it's another form of the addiction of not being real. And so there has to be a true sense of self, and there has to be that balance of I'm doing these things to have empathy for you as my partner and to take care of you. And I am not going against my own values, and I'm still a whole and complete person on my own. So just recognizing that spectrum there of we don't want extreme on either side of that.
Yeah, totally. Thanks for calling that out. I appreciate that. Okay, so the next one is you no longer try to control the narrative. Okay. You're truthful about your behaviors. You're not omitting the details, and they're going to make yourself look better. I think that no longer controlling the narrative, it's hard to see that control. It's hard to see where I think I've let go of control and I think I'm allowing people to see all the parts, but have I actually? My favorite question is when it's like in a consult or it's in an intake is to what level are you willing to go to figure this out? Probably said differently than that. And then there's guys that this is a two-parter. The men that I work with, this is a two-parter. They say they give the right answer, which is anything. I'll do anything. And that includes giving truth, the truth that I've afraid will make it so I'm alone. And then I'm like, cool. In my mind, I don't say this, but I'm like, great, that's the right answer. Now back it up. Let's see you do that. And I think that no longer controlling the narrative, whether it's downplaying things, not saying things, dishonesty about the past, whatever it might be, that's a tough one to understand.
And it's a tough one to follow through with. I think, yeah, 99% of the time I get that same answer. I'll do anything. But will you do the hard things? Will you say the things you don't want to say? Will you lean into discomfort? Are you willing to risk losing everything to find yourself and start living in honesty and transparency?
You know what I get a lot, Alana? I get a lot of the time before I even get somebody saying, yeah, I'll do anything. I can't do this anymore. I can't do this cycle. Can't do this pattern. The people aren't ready for change ask a lot of the questions. They aren't ready for change yet. Say things like, tell me what I'm going to be asked to do. Tell me what I'm going to need to do. And I'm like, okay, so now what I recognize is there's going to be work in breaking through denial. I can't actually see things because once it's seen, then it's like, I can't do this anymore. Can't. Okay. The next one is you can identify patterns in your behavior. I love this one. I love this one because this is like somebody that becomes shame resilient or is learning to become shame resilient because all of a sudden they're not identifying their worth through their failing, their worth through the choices that they make. They're able to like take a look at the whole picture. They're able to fall down, stand up, go, oh, huh, I see that. And I can see that. I can see those patterns. I can see that happening over and over again. And now I'm going to look at it and I'm going to analyze it and I'm going to dissect it. Probably not by myself, right? Probably with somebody that can help me do that. But yeah, that's the fourth piece of denial.
And notice Luke didn't say past behaviors because I see often people who are still in denial totally are like, yeah, let's explore my past behaviors. That wasn't me. Let's see what that guy over there did. And then they want to sort through that without going, no, what patterns are happening today? What patterns am I still doing? And even if you're not acting out, are there still similar patterns? And guess what? Usually there are because humans are built in patterns and for that different type of repetition. And so just really being able to own the patterns that are happening right now. Yes, understanding the patterns of the past, but what's alive today?
Mm. And that's, how dare you call that out? Let's talk about the past, right? That's easier. I can demonize the old me. I can demonize that guy that I'm no longer, but I'm not him anymore. That's part of the problem because that's the experiences. I can see patterns that exist that are still weaving my experience today. Okay, cool. Anything else on identifying patterns, Alana?
I'll just say for couples, patterns are what we really have to know and understand and work on breaking in couples work. I think about this intensive we have coming up in March, and it's really like just this, like diving into the patterns and how do we break those patterns? Because if we don't understand the patterns, if we can't see the patterns that are active and alive, we can't break them.
Mhm.
So,
It
yeah.
will. I love that because this couples intensive we have coming up, these couples that are doing this work and understanding these patterns, it's cool to see the rewarding experience of them coming together and have identified the pattern in themselves and are not forcing their partner to be doing something about it. And they're going inside of themselves and they're coming together as a couple. And then they're talking about the pattern and they're leaning into the discomfort. And it's amazing to watch how rewarding it is for both of them, how hard it is and how rewarding it is.
Mhm. For sure.
Okay. So the next one is are you willing to do what it takes to change? So that I think that we don't have to spend a lot of time on that because we already did. Just that, okay, I'll do what it takes.
Really quick on that
Yeah.
one. All right, before we jump forward,
Mhm.
in our notes, it talks about are you willing to take concrete steps? And so I like that one. And I want to highlight that piece because it's really common. And I'll speak to partners. Partners so bad want to have hope. And so they will hear the person who's acted outside their values or has a problematic sexual behavior give these promises and give the words. And so they so bad want to believe that. And so they hold on to these words as the concrete steps. But instead of watching the mouth of what someone's saying and watching the words, we got to watch the feet. And
Mhm.
so for partners, if there's any partners listening to this, it is looking for those concrete actionables. And then for the person who you're really trying to change, what action steps are you regularly taking today? So just really highlighting that those concrete steps.
Yeah, it's very intentional, these steps. They're created on purpose and they're moved forward on purpose. Yeah. The change doesn't happen accidentally. It's really fun to listen to people like this couples intensive we have coming up here. These people didn't get here on accident. They didn't fall in this place. They took steps in their individual recovery to get there. All right. So the other one is you accept the full scope of the problem. So I acknowledge the behavior in myself, but I also recognize there's something where there's deep emotional wounds, there's trauma, there's coping mechanisms. I think about process addiction. It's not just one thing. It's one thing contributes to the other. You've been talking a lot about lately. One thing impacts another, that impacts another, that impacts another. So it's understanding the whole pattern, right?
Yeah, nothing happens in isolation or in a vacuum. Everything impacts everything else. When we're trying to teach couples how to come back together and the person who has injured their partner is trying to heal the relationship and trying to create a safe environment to do so, one thing we talk about a lot is this need to slow down and get curious. And energetically, you really can't fake curiosity. Like you can say the words.
Mm-hmm.
It is one of those things that it is so easy to tell when somebody is truly interested and curious or when they're not. But that right there, that element of if you can really get curious about what they're experiencing, get curious about the impact, get curious about understanding those deeper emotional wounds with true curiosity and interest and wanting to learn, then those pieces really can lay a foundation for healing a relationship.
Yeah, and you can't understand the full scope of the problem unless you got curious about how it is, why it is today. One of the things that's in the notes on the full scope of the problem is that there is that work around identity in your relationship and understanding how one impacts the other. And our last intensive we did for the men, this was the unmasked intensive. I think out of the, I don't know, 8 guys that were there, all but one of them or maybe 2 of them, the thing that I identified was the thing that was keeping them from being able to move forward in their recovery and their healing in their relationship was to be able to be present, to be able to be fully present with their partner. So much distraction, so much coping mechanisms. And you really have to understand the full scope of the problem in order to even be present to begin with.
And that is, are you able to be fully present with yourself? And are you able to really get curious about yourself and really know yourself? You had Gary Katz on your podcast recently, and on his company's website, I forget his tagline, but it's basically something along the lines of you have to learn how to get intimate and be intimate with yourself before you can truly be intimate with other people. You have to know yourself. And so I think this of accepting the full scope of the problem is it's equally understanding the impact on other people and you. And it's knowing you and healing that relationship with you.
Mm, I love that so much. He's coming back to this podcast, by the way. So I'm excited to have him back. The next one, you feel the discomfort, but you don't run from it. So when you break through denial, there's going to be a lot through that process, a lot of guilt. There's a lot of shame. There's a lot of grief. There's a lot of fear. But you allow yourself to sit with that, those emotions and those feelings. You're not like numbing them or pushing them away. There's that part where there's going to be that urge to like do those things we talked about earlier, justify, rationalize as that stuff comes up, but you don't. You feel the discomfort. You're there present with it. And that's like what happened in the group that I was referring to earlier. Those men came in to that group setting and they were checking in with high energy, comfortable feelings. And then they left that group with a sense of like heaviness. And that sense of heaviness was around maybe seeing some denial they hadn't seen before. Oh, there's more work to do. But they didn't run from it. They weren't running from it. They talked like very actionable things that they wanted to do. And from what I could tell from checkouts, it wasn't just a, I don't want anything to do with this. There was an energy about wanting to do. So not running from it, but running to it.
I think that if you have spent a lifetime running from pain or numbing out from pain, which is what we see if we're to the point where we have an addiction, then here we've been like running from or numbing out to the pain, learning how to sit in the pain as a process. And sometimes I'll see people again, like the two spectrums that they'll like pendulum swing of like, no, I have to be in so much pain. And they try to like force pain. So then now it's like, look at me, I'm sitting in all the pain. And they can go to a victim mindset, which actually isn't helpful. And so it's finding that healthy balance, and it's learning how to allow yourself to sit in the pain and also recognizing where you are and when I need to step back and get re-regulated and get grounded. And so this one in particular really is a learning process. And I think similar to lifting weights, the more frequently I lift and as I increase the weight, I'll get stronger and stronger. But I can't instantly go and start lifting 300 pounds.
Mm-hmm,
I got to start with 5 or 10 pounds and work my way up. And so learning to sit in this discomfort, figuring out where you're at, and then building from there.
Yeah. And so if you're wondering, okay, thanks for the markers, y'all. Like, thanks for the ways to measure it. And what would I actually do? What action could I take? Let's just talk about the first one that's in the model for breaking through denial is you sit with a therapist, you sit with a coach, and you share with them all the pieces, because that's a safe place. That's a place of confidentiality. That's to share the stuff that you don't share, the stuff that kind of wants to eat you alive. Like, I can't let this out. And then that next piece is then you do a thorough review of that stuff, the stuff that you're just like, it's going to kill me. And that is going to prompt and it's going to bring to the surface those ways to be able to break through denial, because it's going to start to paint a picture. And guess what? The picture, believe it or not, if you do the work, isn't I'm not enough. That's what exists before you actually do the exploring. Then you finally get to a place of, oh, wow, I'm not my behavior. And that is very painful. And I have hope. I would just say the last thing is, for those of you who've been in this journey for a while, just especially when you're working on that relational healing, really excited for you to check out that couples intensive that we have going on. It is very exciting to see those people that are ready for that work do it. So if you're wondering to yourself, am I ready? You don't need to know that. Just show up with us. Let's talk about it. Let's assess and see if that is. but very rewarding opportunity for all the hard work that you've done.
Just to clarify, when you say show up, we're saying you can schedule a discovery call or an intake session to see if where you're at, it could be beneficial or not. You could just sign up and show up and we take care of you. But
Thanks for clarifying.
it does come with a free session for each person, each couple that signs up, not only to explore if it's right, but really all of our intensives, we try to tailor to who's there. And so it's figuring out what you need so you can get the help.
Thanks, Alana. All right, everybody. It was good to hang out with you today. Take care, and we'll talk to you later. Hey guys, I am super excited to talk to you about our latest intensive that we have coming up. It's called Men's Journey to Wholeness. Prior to this, many of you attended Unmasked, and Men's Journey to Wholeness is the next level of recovery. It's more of phase 2 recovery. It's a relationship with self, so we can have a relationship with others. You're welcome to join us in the beautiful Spanish Fork area, and we are going to be having this on March 12th through the 14th. But let me tell you a little bit about it. It's a 3-day intensive. There's going to be a lot of transformational connection going on. That's going to be the focus. We're going to dive into the work. We're open to all men. So whether you attended the Unmasked intensive or not, it's okay. But the focus is we're going to be building deeper relationship with yourself. A lot of times men are trying to kill that part of them that made these horrible choices. They don't like that part of them. We're going to identify that part of us. And we're going to allow us to see something that we haven't seen before. We're going to learn about how your protective parts protect and how they've shielded you from things and how they're still shielding you from things. And we're going to release some of those burdens. The principles are inspired by the book, No Bad Parts. There's going to be activities. There's going to be experiential workshops. There's going to be hands-on exercises. There's going to be a lot of guided support. There'll be a couple surprises. You won't be sworn to secrecy, but it's going to be pretty fun to see everybody engage in the type of activities we have coming up for you. And let me tell you what a fair outcome might be if you decide to do something like this. By the end of the intensive, you're going to be able to embrace a part of yourself that maybe you haven't before and have some awareness around it. Much deeper connection with yourself and removing some of those barriers that keep you isolated. Also unburden yourself from the heaviness of the secrets. The secrets might be out there, but the burden of sharing parts of you that you just don't feel like you can share with other people. We'll give you some direction on how to sign up. Space is limited. I hate saying that. Definitely want you to hurry to registration. Reach out to us if you have questions. We will give you more information about how to sign up in the notes of this podcast and on our website. Hopefully we can see you there.
Are there times you feel overwhelmed at the amount of resources and books available for betrayal trauma and addiction? Do you ever wonder where to start? Are you looking for a safe space to explore and process the various aspects of recovery? I'm Rachel Strong-Smith, and I am offering a group for women to come together to study and discuss a specific recovery book written by a professional in this field. This psychoeducational group will meet twice a month for a period of 3 months and be filled with group insights about the book that we are reading. As a social worker, I will facilitate the group by creating a space to explore questions and conversations, perspectives, and applications of the reading. There are many rich sources of information out there. Learning and growth are strengthened in community. Let's discover how these many resources can add to our life and the recovery process. Head over to chooserecoveryservices.com for more information and to sign up. I look forward to seeing you there.
Hey, thanks for joining us today. If this is something that you connected with, I'd love to meet with you more and talk about it. So what you can do is go to chooserecoveryservices.com or check the show notes. And there what we can do is set up a quick conversation to meet. Thanks so much for listening to Beyond the Facade, where we unmask the authentic self.